So for the last example I'm going to show you that you're going to repeat after me, and then after that you're going to come up with your own textures. I'm going to show you scales. I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. One, you can just do the lines, and on this one I want you to do the scales kind of big, but not super big, and they're just little tiny humps. It's kind of like the brick. So we're going to do some humps, and then every other one, like this hump goes in the middle of this one, and this hump goes here. So very light. I want you to, like I said, I'll show you two ways, and then you can decide how you want to do it. Okay, and then the other way you could do is you can create these lines by doing that incised texture. So I don't know if you can see it on here, but there's a little bit of a white line right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tracing paper. I can still use the piece that I've already used because there's plenty of room on here. All right, take it over here. I've got my pen, and then I'm going to overlap this just a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding in the humps where I left off. Now, I do have a piece of paper underneath here, or a pad of paper. Again, you want a soft surface. You don't want this directly on the table. It just doesn't work as well. You may want to overlap just a little bit. So I'm going to do a couple of areas of this. You can even kind of just bring this down, I guess, if you wanted to do it this way too. Keep going. So when I do that, it kind of leaves an indent in the paper, so I can go back over it with my pencil. Again, we want something kind of smooth. All right, you can see those lines come forward, so we go over the top of all this. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over the top of these two, and like I said, you can do it either way, or if you want to try it both ways, that's fine too. Maybe to see if you're listening to the videos, I will give you a little bit of extra credit if you do it both ways. And then what you want to do is you want to start out at the top of it, and you want to go kind of dark, and you want to fade it down a little bit lighter into that original value. Okay, so it's darker up towards the top, and then we're going to fade it. Now, I didn't have to use my blending stump on this. If you want to use your blending stump, you can. I'll show you how you can do it with one. But just make sure that there's a difference, that it should. Be careful when you use your blending stump. Sometimes it just blends it all into one. Same thing with this, with the incised line. I'm not going to go into the line, but I do want to make it darker right here, and then we will fade this in. That white line just kind of helps create what's called contrast, which we've talked about before, to make things pop out just a little bit more. And again, you still want to fade it in. So each one of these, you will start out dark and then fade it a little bit lighter. Where'd my example go? So we want an example kind of similar to this. So that's scales. Now, after you've done all these different ones, so we have our practice incised lines. Let me pull this back out. Then we have our wood texture. Put that there. We have our brick. So we'll put that there. My scales that we just did. We did the clouds. And we have the cracks. Alright, so that's what your top should look like, except this should be completely filled in with all your different incised lines. And you can mark these if you want, you don't have to. Then on the bottom half, what I would like for you to do, move this so we can see all of them, is you are going to create your own. So this is where you got to put on your thinking cap here a little bit. In two of the boxes, I want two simulative textures. Okay, all these that we did up here, the scales, the wood, the cracks, the brick, these are all simulative because we were making them to try to look like something else. So we're drawing them to look like a texture that we have a name for. Okay, so you want to do two different ones of that. Try some fur or hair or a different rock. I don't know, you look up some different textures and see what you can come up with. Then what I want you to do is do two inventive. Okay, if you recall from notes, inventive is just a repetitive texture or repetitive pattern. with different lines and shapes. So be creative on this. Don't just do a box and a box and a box and a box and a box. Okay, just if you just do bunches of boxes like this, I'm sorry, that's not very creative. Okay, so come up with a unique pattern or design that you can do in here to fill in the space. So you're going to do 2 inventive. And this can be with a regular pencil, or you could do the impress line technique with it and then shade over the top of it, so whatever way. All right, 2 inventive, 2 simulative, and then you want 2 real. So this means you are going to glue down 2 different things, okay? And it can be tiny little pieces. Maybe you find something that you can make, or just find scraps of things, put them together with Elmer's glue and glue it down, right? 2 different things. Make sure that you don't, what I don't want is you to find a magazine picture and then glue that down, because that doesn't have texture. I want to be able to actually feel the texture. Remember, that's what real or actual texture is you can actually feel it. So you want to create the texture on here. Okay, so you're going to fill all this whole page up, and then on the next slide we'll do the card.